There, learning community, it's Dr. Deanna, and I wanted to start a series where I could just share with you about the most asked questions when it came to teaching children and teaching them specifically how to read. And so in this video today, I'm going to address the number one question I get asked the most out of all the questions, and that is basically what to do to help my child learn to read if they've learned their letter sounds, but I can't get them to blend. So we're going to touch on that. I want to encourage you to go ahead and download my December calendar. If you haven't already, there's lots of tips and tricks just to go back and review and help retain the letter knowledge that they've gained without having to spend a lot of time, because we know that this is a super busy time and there's lots of things going on and we want to prioritize family. So I encourage you to download that calendar. And with that, I want to go ahead and dive right in. Stay to the end because I'm going to give you a very practical strategy that you can take back to your child with minimal materials and minimal time, very little to no prep at all. So here we go. The number one question I get asked is, how do I get my child to blend words? They know all their letter sounds, but I can't get them to blend their words. And so this is how I explain it. Knowing letter sounds and the letter names, but specifically the sounds, because that's actually what transfers into our reading. That's like having all the ingredients for a recipe, but not having the recipe or the know-how of how to put the ingredients together. So in essence, the letter sounds are the raw materials. They are what the child needs in order to make reading happen. But also, they need the know-how to how to put those raw materials or those ingredients together. And that goes back to something called phonemic awareness, which is the number one predictor of reading success. 90% of children need structured literacy. They need phonics. They also need phonemic awareness. This is very much what science of reading tells us. And science of reading is a big buzzword. I just want to go ahead and get that out there, that science of reading is actually an ongoing thing. And it's a body of research that covers 50 some odd years. And we have ebbs and flows. We have things that have trended in literacy education. We find out that it really wasn't the best for children. But what science has shown us over the course of many years of study, and in science and research, we have something called replications when we do a study over and over again and get similar or the same results. What that has showed us is that 90% of children need phonics. We also need to teach something called phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is basically the ability to take apart and blend together sounds to decode words. And I want to take that back a little step, back a little bit, to include phonemic awareness is really understanding the sound structure within our language. And again, how to break apart words, how to blend them together. Those are parts of phonemic awareness. And they transfer directly into a child being able to decode and read, which is important to being a fluent reader. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a real simple strategy in my videos. I use something called Phoneme boxes, but there's a really simple way to replicate that at home without having to buy a special board or special materials. And actually that just takes basically Post-it notes. For my purposes, I'm going to use a whiteboard just to stick them to so that you can see as I model. But really, all we need is Post-it notes, a marker, and these can serve as the Phoneme box. And the reason why Phoneme boxes help children when they're learning to read is, first of all, it actually gives them more of a concrete definition that helps them connect the sound to the letter. And it really gives the letter its place in space, so to speak, or its place in the word, and shows them how letters line up. But also, if you use something like Post-it notes, it becomes interactive because they can manipulate those sounds around and move them around. And that concrete, tactile kinesthetic movement really ups the learning for children. First of all, they're more engaged. And second of all, that is how a lot of kids are wired to learn. So this is a really great strategy, especially for your active learners, the learners that want to know why. This is going to help that out. So if I wanted to, for instance, take my letter sounds and t and a, let's say these are the letters that I'm working with, I can make a word. I'm going to go ahead and do the word pat. P, a, t, pat. So you see, first I segmented it on my chin. P, a, t. We call that segmenting when we break the word apart. And then I blended it. Pat. Now I go ahead and I listen to each sound in the word. P. I hear the p at the beginning, and I know that's the sound that goes with the letter P. I hear the a, and that's the sound that goes with the letter A, so I can move my A right there. And then at the end, I have t. And if you want to start out just by making the word for your child and then having them move on to make it themselves, that's a great starting point. They don't have to start off listening to all the sounds and forming the word. Sometimes we can just start out making the word for them. And then we get out our reading finger and we segment the word. P, a, t. Now we do something called continual blending or continuous blending, which means basically we stretch the word out. We don't want to stretch it out too long because we want to help isolate the middle sound a bit without making it sound like more than one letter. So here we go. Pat. Blend it, pat. So I did three things there. I segmented it, each sound. Then I did the continual blending where I stretched it out. And then I did a fluid blending where I quickly blend it together, which means that it would be a fluid or fluent way to read that word. Now, one great strategy here is I can just mix it up. I can take the p off and I can make the word sat. S, at, continual blending, sat. Now fluid blending, sat. Or if I want to talk about those tricky middle vowels, those tend to be the trickiest of all, I can just go ahead and manipulate my middle or medial vowel and get out my reading finger. S, it, continual blending, sit. Now fluid blending, sit. I can also do that with the ending or final sounds. So maybe I want to go back and make this sip. S, it. Now stretch it out, continual blending, sip. Now fluid blending, sip. And that is a great strategy to get your child to understand how to put those sounds together. If they don't get it right away with the 3 sound words, you can step it back and do 2 sound words or 2-letter words. That works great too. And with that, I want to encourage you to subscribe. I have tons of free resources right here on my YouTube, also on Instagram. And I encourage you to take advantage of all those resources. Ask me questions. I love to answer. And I will see you next time when I teach to your students or your child's learning strengths, one child and family at a time.